All right, welcome back again, everyone. Two friends occasionally not disagreeing. I'm Cody, and I'm here with Justin and Mr. Hudson. Matt is with us as well tonight as we take a look at a second installment of the classic or crap format that we introduced with Earthbound. It's been a while since we've done that one, though, so we'll see if this ends up being more recurring than it currently is. But we had a couple ideas for a podcast this week involving some board games, so we'll talk about that in just a second here. Give our hosts a chance to tell us what they've been up to. I'll pass it over to Matt, who has been, I know, working through his first year teaching this year. So, Matt, how's it going?
It's exhausting. Um, it's absolutely exhausting. I was recalling a memory the other day, where I believe in seventh grade, and this is going to sound dramatic, but I was a dramatic child. I thought to myself, if I had the balls to off myself, I would never have to deal with another day of middle school in my life. Somehow I forgot about this when I signed a contract to teach it.
Wow. Just, just to be clear, we were talking before we pressed record, and that was the comment you thought that you wanted to keep on the podcast, and the other one's the one you wanted to take out, just to be clear. Okay. Wow. Well, I
I
know you
guess.
have had some leisure lately, at least. You had something good in your life this week. Where'd you go?
Oh yeah, went to see Weird Al in Detroit. That was a very nice trip. Now the original date of that concert was back in May, but Al got COVID, so it was
Oh,
postponed, and this was the redate, and it was his Vanity tour, which is like he doesn't play any of the big parody songs, doesn't get in the fat suit, doesn't dress up like Kurt Cobain, any of that stuff. He just plays his original songs. And to be honest, that's the one I really would have really wanted to see. He played lots of songs I really like that, don't get played all that often. Dog
yeah.
Eat Dog from the Polka Party album comes to mind. That's a great song. It's one of my favorites of his. Um, and the opening act was a guy named Emo Phillips. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's in the movie UHF with Al. He plays the guy who saws his thumb off with the table saw,
Ooh.
and his opening was absolutely hilarious. Very, very dark at some points, but darkly hilarious. One of my favorite bits was when he's talking about like he's like my sister he has this really weird voice. He's like my sister married a German, and we all know these Germans from the Nazi days. And he asked me why he can't get a good bagel in Germany. And I said, and he just sort of shrugged his shoulders. Which I didn't give the whole thing there, but that's what I remember the most. That was my favorite. That was my favorite line of his, I think. But
That's good stuff. You said you brought
It's
your brother.
memorable.
How many times have you seen Weird Al before then? Sounded like you had seen him before.
second, but this is interesting. This is actually interesting. I saw him 27 years ago.
Oh, wow.
27 years ago. Now, what's funny about that is the number 27 comes up in Weird Al songs all the time. Um, I've seen Porky's 27 times this week on my cable TV in the song Cable TV. Biggest Ball Twine in Minnesota. They started singing 99 bottles of beer on the wall for the 27th time that day. And I can't watch this. He's like, fell off the roof on a rake. Heard they got it on the 27th take. And that's not even all of them. There's like a whole bunch. 27 just comes up all the time in his stuff.
Hmm.
So I thought it was funny that it's been 27 years.
What's the reason for that? Do you know or not?
Uh, the postulated reason that I was reading, because I looked it up a couple days ago,
Yeah.
was that there's four syllables, and those four, because it's four syllables, it lines up with notes really easily, and
Hmm.
that's the lowest number that has four syllables in it.
Oh, really?
Huh.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So the article I was reading said it's the same reason that a lot of rap songs use the word is this a censored podcast?
No.
Yeah.
Motherfucker.
Oh, yeah.
Motherfucker. So
Yeah,
four
we say
syllables,
that.
full syllables, and 27. Same thing. It just fits musically really easily. Very even
Yeah.
number.
I was happy that was the word you were going with there if you mentioned rap songs. But anyway, well, that's good. So you're surviving though. You're counting down. When's your spring
Oh yeah.
break?
I will tell you one of my teaching anecdotes. No, 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 no. Well, because it comes up with what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what I look like to my students, but my favorite question I've gotten repeatedly is, Mr. Hudson, who's your favorite rapper? And I'm like, do you see me?
Well, that's what they want to know.
Yeah.
You're like the lady at the Macy's counter around Christmas. Just interestingly, I subbed a couple classes today, and I did play a lot of '90s rap, and they were like, "It's the best class we've ever had," and I was like, "Okay." I had one class that was being completely unruly and throwing crap and being very loud, and I put that on, and they mellowed right out for like 35 minutes. I was like, I don't know what just happened, but it was fantastic that it did. But anyway,
Yeah. Can you tell me the songs names?
yeah, I'll send them your way.
All right, very
I'll send
good.
them your way. Yeah. Sounds good. They're into they like knew the words too. I was like very surprised that it was music they knew because it was so old.
Yeah.
But anyway, Justin, what have you been up to?
Nothing quite so interesting or involved as that.
No
Most
bank
of my free
robberies?
I mean, I can neither confirm nor deny. But I've been playing through in my free time the newest Fire Emblem Engage, which if you've played the one that came out before that, Three Houses, this is much more a traditional style of Fire Emblem. It does still have the sort of hub area you can walk around in and talk to people and stuff, but it doesn't, so far at least, have the time management mechanic or the lesson planning, that sort of thing. It's much more focused on the battles, which I'm okay with. And it is a lot of fun so far. It brought back the weapon triangle, which was missing from Three Houses. So you have to be a bit more careful about where you position some of your troops, because if you got an axe guy and there's a bunch of sword guys, around him, then he's going to have a bad time.
Yeah.
But yeah. Graphically, they polished it up a bit, even from Three Houses, so it looks really nice.
Oh, okay.
I question some of the translation here and there,
Hmm.
but it's not as bad as some of the 3DS games, at least. The thing that stands out to me is I just met a character who's like a thief, and she's trying to play coy and everything, and she's like, at one point she's like, "Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm so and so. Hiya papaya," is what she says, and it's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know how that would have translated from Japanese or what the original thing was, but I wonder what other liberties they've taken with some of the text in this. Hiya papaya.
Interesting.
Yeah, but despite that, still a fun game. Yeah, I'm probably about midway through it at this point, maybe a little less, but it's fun.
Okay.
So
Sweet.
yeah.
As far as I've been up to lately, a couple things I guess I'd mention here. My family started watching the TV show Lock and Key on Netflix as like the new family show. We still have Stranger Things. We restarted with the kids actually too, which I was a little hesitant on, but we did end up starting with them. But we took a break to start this other show because we hadn't seen Stranger Things for a while. A couple weeks had gone by or whatever. So they're on season 3 already. So this has been out for a while, but essentially is like this family that moves into a familial mansion that is being transferred to their name now. So they moved from like the West Coast to, I forget, Massachusetts, Connecticut, someplace on the East Coast. I think it is Massachusetts. And they live in this place called Key House, which has hidden keys basically all over the house and hidden like keyholes all over the house as well. So if you find a key, it's basically like the key system from Resident Evil on crack made into a TV show. Except every time they find one, like so far we just finished episode 3 and they found two or three keys they have found and where they go, and each one does like something wildly different. Like the first key they found lets you open any door at all, and then when you wish or think of a place and you open the door, once the key's in the lock, you open the door and it'll take you as a transport to that place. So that was pretty cool. And then they had one that is it was actually kind of creepy. It's hard to watch. For whatever reason, he found this one that had like a head on the key, the end of the key, not the part you put in the door, the handle part. And he goes to like I forget how he did it. The little kid, there's like 3 kids that are like 2 teenagers and like 1 little kid. And he like looked in a mirror or something and realized he has a keyhole in his neck. And so the characters have been like reaching back and like putting this key into their neck and turning it. And it's like, I find it a very hard thing to watch for some reason. It's like of just the action of putting something in and then twisting it with like a naturally occurring hole there is bizarre. But it seems like the keyhole like manifests itself when a key is nearby. So like I don't think he has an actual keyhole there all the time. But anyway, long story short, that one takes you like into your mind and in your memories, and it like manifests it as a physical space that you go to. And so he went to his, which was like a big arcade funhousey type place. And then like his sister took it and later did it. And she's like 16 or something. And it took her to like this really messed up like mall with like escalators all over the walls and the sky and stuff. And like it was all these memories of her dad all over the place. And like it's pretty messed up, but we're kind of enjoying that so far. So that's a new show. And then I've also been playing Dying Light for quite a while. I'm at the last mission and I'm just going to do that tomorrow morning probably to finish that up. I'm really sad. There's that whole cool sub game Hell Raid I was telling you about. And my file, I think, is like glitched. Like I can't get out of the first stage of it because there's like 2 enemies behind a wall, it seems like, that I can't get out.
Oh.
So I'm just like stuck in the game won't advance. But it didn't make any
geez.
sense. I was running around for like 20 minutes yesterday being like, man, I really wanted to see this now. Like I'm close to the end. I wanted to try this whole thing. And I did do something. I don't know what. I picked up like a potion off a table I found in the dungeon, and like a ton of new bad guys started coming out. So something triggered, but I can't seem to get it go past that. I was looking online about it as well, and it seems like there is some kind of glitch in like the coding where people said they had to like just restart a new save for the game basically to try that particular mode out. But it looks pretty cool. All of the game is co-op also, which I think would be a really fun way to play a lot of the game. Not sure how some parts of it would work, but yeah. And then also wanted to do just a 2-second shout out because Nintendo Direct had a conference recently, and of all the games I put on my list for most anticipated 2023, those dirty buggers, I didn't know they were slipping a new Professor Layton game into the mix in 2023. 20-second trailer that I watched with my first hour, who's a bunch of Nintendo geeks, so that was fun. And can't wait for that one also. So anyway.
Nice.
Yeah, so all right, well, we're here for our second installment of Classic or Crap, as we said. And we're talking about a topic today that is really near and dear to, I would say, almost all of the hosts of this show, but one we haven't really talked about too much, which is board gaming. And this is, well, we'll talk about a little bit here, but this is a hobby that has really seen a renaissance in the last 20 to 30 years at this point, I would say, to where we were talking beforehand, if we maybe mention board games, you might automatically go to like, Monopoly or Risk or Sorry or Clue or those types
Scrabble.
of games, Scrabble, yeah, word games, other things like that, even like Trivial Pursuit or different types of games. But if you haven't seen newer games, there are a lot of them, like a lot. I think they were making, a few years ago when I was a little more into this because I had a little more time, I think they were making like, I don't know how many new games a year were coming out, 10,000, like 20,000. It was a large number of games to the point where like, I feel like we all got on this. This is a good topic for us because I feel like we all kind of hopped on this as the industry was kind of booming. And like now it's like so big, like it's almost intimidating to me because I've stepped out of it for a little bit, or at least not as much as I was into it. So now when I like check out what's new, there's just like so many things out there that I could see how it would be intimidating for somebody new to jump into this hobby. So if you are a listener out there, and if you have at all any interest in anything we talk about tonight or in general, just board game questions that you may have, feel free to post them to our Facebook page or otherwise, wherever you can contact us, because we've I don't want to wager how many thousands of games we have collectively played as hosts of this podcast, but I mean, I know we all have a very girthy board game collection and have probably played many, many games beyond the ones that we individually own as well. So quite a bit. But tonight we're going to take a look at two of what are called the gateway games of modern board gaming. This would be Settlers of Catan and Carcassonne. These are two games which are similar in some ways, but different in other ways. But they're both considered kind of like, if you're a new board gamer, these might be a game that an established board game host might put out on the table for you to try these newer style board games, try to get some concepts down, try to understand the mechanics of how some of these newer style games work, and how to well, we'll talk about later, but it's not the most forgiving hobby if you're the new player. I will say that, because normally, if I teach somebody a game, they're like, if I play this like twice more, I'd really get it, and then I'd be, able to play it more. And I'm always like, let's play this other game. I got this other one. So I can see how that's frustrating to people too. But anything you guys want to say about just board gaming, your own experiences, I guess, since we haven't talked about this before, or even like, how you got into like modern board gaming, or what you consider to be like the cutoff for modern board gaming? It's a lot to think about.
Yeah, I guess I really got into more complex board gaming, let's say modern board gaming, if you want to put it that way, in college. Prior to that, probably the most complicated, or at least out of the norm board games I had ever played, where I had like a Ghostbusters board game when I was a kid, a Ninja Turtles one, which had some more complex mechanics than just rolling dice. I did have a copy of Hero Quest, but that's almost more an RPG than a standard tabletop game. And but beyond that, growing up, board games meant things like Yahtzee, or Monopoly, or Sorry, that sort of thing. Simple rules, very luck based a lot of the time, and it's something you could sink a couple hours into, or if you were very unlucky, an entire day into with Monopoly. But yeah, nothing really too involved. Certainly not to the level of complexity or investment that you see in board games today. Like even things that are based off of licensed properties are a lot more complex than they used to be. Like there's a Dark Souls board game that is,
I heard about
it's
that.
got it's got a pretty thick rule book, and different scenarios and that sort of thing. And so yeah, board gaming has come a long way from Battleship and Scrabble.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
Mr. Hudson.
I never realized as a kid how much I actually hated Monopoly.
So you didn't
I
play it then, you mean, or?
No, I did. I did. I played it a lot, and I convinced myself it was fun or something. And no, I just realized I did a unit in my student teaching last year where we read a series of death game short stories, which is another passionate topic of mine, and I had them design a board game based off a different story. Each of them had to. Well, they were in groups. Anyway, as I sat them down to try to explain modern board game mechanics and how it's not just like roll the dice and move, one of the kids was just like, "Why can't we just play Monopoly?" And I'm like, okay. So I had to put together a video like specifically just like citing all the awful things about Monopoly. And it was fun. It was a bunch of other videos I found online, and I downloaded them and I like cut them up, and it actually played pretty well, I think. But as I was a kid, I always liked board games. I liked playing Monopoly. I liked playing Clue. Clue was probably my favorite as a kid. I liked playing Risk. But there's really not a lot of meat to those games, I found as I got older. And I don't know exactly when I started playing, because I have like three different starting points of gaming, I think. One would be a guy we knew who I thought dropped off the face of the earth. Well, Cody knew him. You wouldn't have, Justin. His name was Mark Slykehouse. Does that name ring a bell to you, Cody?
Yeah, I know.
I don't know whatever happened to that guy.
I don't know.
Anyway, he introduced me to a game called Quarto, which is like, it's a Mensa game, I think. And
Yeah.
there's like 16 pieces and they're all different. And it's kind of like tic-tac-toe on steroids. and I thought it was really fun. And then I was like, oh, I need to own this game. So I went out and bought myself a copy. And then I played Scotland Yard is another one
Oh yeah.
that I remember commercials from as a kid. And I played it with you, Cody, for the first time. I don't remember when, in college sometime.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, oh, this is a really great game. This is much different than anything else I've played. It was a while before I bought that one. The third one, and probably the most important influence, is a guy named Jeff Spencer, who like just would come over to my house in grad school like once a week, and we would play a different game. And as you were saying earlier, like if you'd play this 2 more times with me, I may get the hang of it. So we play something and he'll explain the rules, we play it, and then he has like, 5,000 board games or something. So he's like, I don't want to play that one again. I want to play a different one. I want to play another game. I'm like, I just learned how to do it. I just saw my mistakes. So let me try again.
Yeah.
And there was a specific board game he introduced me to that really got the ball rolling. I should probably save that for later.
Okay. I'm trying to think. I always played board games a lot as a kid too. I mean, I had a healthy collection as a kid, maybe 20 or 30 or so, but mostly those other style board games we're talking about. I'm trying to think of early ones for me. One of the earliest ones I bought randomly was, I believe, if my memory is accurate on this, which P.S. I'm teaching a novel right now in an English class, which is all about whether memories are accurate. But our family
You have to
went...
talk to me about that later. I'm curious what it is.
All right. We'll see if I remember. No, just kidding. I went to the Mall of America, and they had a Wizards of the Coast store there. And this was a long time ago. I mean, I was a teenager. And we went in, and I picked up a little game that I don't remember. I think it actually may have been in like some kind of like Wizard magazine or something like that. I had seen it before, but it was called Betrayal at House on the Hill. And I looked at the back of this board game and like read the plot, and it was like Scary House, and there's somebody playing as a traitor, and I was like, oh, that all sounds pretty cool. So I picked up a copy. That is a false memory. Now I just remembered this accurately.
I was going to say, you got that in college, because I remember when you bought that
Okay,
thing.
hold on. Yes, you are correct. My memories are blurred here. I'm mixing two. The game I bought at that Wizard of the Coast store was the copy of Diplomacy with the metal pieces, which I gather is worth quite a bit now. But later on, we got Betrayal at House on the Hill. There we go. That would make sense why.
And as you were telling that story, I was thinking, Diplomacy is another one that was important in my development of board games. My memory just holes.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
Diplomacy comes to mind. So,
and then I'm trying to think, when we were in college, we really got into Munchkin, which we could debate the merits of as well, but it's pretty fun. I picked up a copy recently at a half off sale at Barnes & Noble for my kids, and they loved it. Of course, we've played it twice now, and maybe we'll play it again some more. But yeah, then I think sometime into college here, we started to get into a little more complex games, being like, well, this would have been probably Carcassonne, I'd have to imagine. Matt, you probably showed me... I'm trying to think. Maybe it wasn't undergrad, though, hey?
No, it had to be grad
Probably
school.
was grad school because
Jeff Spencer introduced me to it. That was the one I said I would save for later. It was certainly Carcassonne, to which I went out and bought a giant big box of Carcassonne with like all of the current expansions with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to... Yeah, I guess it would have been... I think we really only played Munchkin at that time in TV room at the college we were living in, but we played a ton of that game. So the idea of like strategy and like cooperation, being competitive, and all of these mix and match type things was kind of on the radar. But then, yeah, it was really... I think you're right. Like grad school is where I really started to hit into like some of these other big ones. And other people I met introduced me to more, and then just kind of have been collecting games since then, up to... I don't know how many games I just bought at that Barnes & Noble sale that they had. That was like, when was that? First week of January or something weird. I saw a post online. Somebody said like, Barnes & Noble is going crazy because they're clearing out all of their board game shelves to make room for puzzles for January or something. And I was like, why? That was my first thought. Like, is there that much of a puzzle market that they need like 7 shelves or 7 aisles at every Barnes and Noble, but okay.
There's
So they
several
had like,
people I get puzzles for Christmas. Several people.
I mean, me too, but I was like, they don't need to have any puzzles there. So I don't know. They made all of the stores across the country for 2 days half off, and
Wow.
I stocked up we went to 2 stores, and I think if I had to guess, I probably bought 25 games. I mean, ish, because I was like, these are half off. Like, it's ridiculous.
If
Yeah.
I buy more games at this point in time, like I already have like 12 or more that I've never played.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So that's like I probably shouldn't buy anymore because if I do, I'll probably get, murdered in my sleep. That's just a lie. My wife is really a very sweet
Are you
person. She would
safe? You've
never.
made a couple comments today. I'm kind of worried.
No,
This is an audio podcast, but we have video of each other, so just blink if there's a.
you're good.
All right. Well, anyway, so the 2 we're going to chat about here tonight are Carcassonne and Settlers of Catan, or just Catan as it is sometimes known here. We mentioned earlier, these are kind of 2 of the gateway games that are often brought up to the table if you're a newbie to the modern board gaming here. And I guess we'll kind of go through some experiences and thoughts on both of these, but I'll give you both some basic stats here. I'm using the ever wonderful boardgamegeek.com. If you haven't been on this website and are interested in board games, or if you are a board gamer yourself, no doubt you've been on this website. But some comparisons here between the 2. We have, a little shockingly on this one, I was kind of surprised, registered users, which you can draw your own conclusions there. We have Catan, 186,000 people own a copy of Catan that are registered on this website. And Carcassonne, I thought would be a little further behind, but it's at 177,000. So it is very close in terms of, people that own this game that are registered on the website.
Do you actually put your game collection on that thing? Do you actually like for that, like so that it counts your stuff?
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I ain't going through my games. I'm just trying to look up information about them.
Like I said, when I was more into it, I was pretty up to date on I even got into rating them a little bit. I don't do a lot of that now, really ever, but I do have my old collection on here. It's behind now, of course, but I do find this humorous that apparently 6.3 thousand people have a wish list of wanting Settlers of Catan, and I'm thinking boy, how could you possibly find one of those?
I thought you were going to say 6.9 thousand people had a copy of
Buy it at
Cinemasters.
fucking Kroger.
Yeah, these are everywhere. You can get these anywhere. Target in particular, like the big box stores, has really gotten better. Walmart has a bunch too now and stuff, but Target usually has a little more, I think.
Yeah.
Carcassonne, 8.2 thousand people claim that they are looking for a copy of Carcassonne. Wow. Again, don't know where you're going to get this at. Well, let's go through these. So which one would you gents like to start with? Is there one that you played first of the 2? Matt, you said...
I played Carcassonne first, but Catan is an earlier game. Catan came out in 96, I believe. Carcassonne came out in 2001. Okay,
and Matt, Justin, which one did you play first?
That is a tough one. I want to say I played Carcassonne first, but I'm not 100%
Did you
sure.
play Catan with someone you knew before me, like in high school? Or in tech or something? Then you played Carcassonne. Then you played Carcassonne first.
Okay,
I'm almost assuredly Carcassonne.
Okay.
All right. Well, do we want to do the one that came out first, or do we want to do the one we played first?
I'm fine with the one we played first. I mean, earliest memory is the latest, unless you'd rather do it the other way.
No, I don't have a preference. Let's do it then. All right. So we're going to start with Carcassonne, which is a word I had never seen before Matt dropped this box down on the table one day. I know this is referencing a real place, but I did not know this word.
Well, hold on really quick about that.
Yeah.
I'm taking a European trip this summer, right? And we're going to France, and we're going to Paris technically from the north, and I was just thinking to myself, I wonder where Carcassonne is. And I type it in and I look, and here's Paris. And it goes all the way southwest, 200 miles or 250 miles. I'm like, well, I'm not seeing Carcassonne.
Well,
maybe
it depends on how you place the rivers.
Yeah, it does.
Just skip the Eiffel Tower. You'll be fine. Go down there. Well, you are going to get see Le Havre though, right? So you got that going for you.
That's where we're docking.
I remember you saying that.
Oh, you poor bastard.
This is another game which is near and dear to many of our hosts' heart as well.
Well, I remember Allie's like, well, we're docking at this place called La Havre, and you're never going to remember that. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, don't worry, I'll remember that one.
Yeah, the hell.
I know. Probably don't need to do a classic or crap on that one. I think we know where most people's votes would be.
Yes.
All right, let's look at this. So Carcassonne, as mentioned here by Matt, is maybe the later of the two games, but this is I'll give some more raw stats here and they'll chat about this. So on Board Game Geek, users have given this an aggregate of 7.4 out of 10, with a total of 117,000 people that have rated this. So this is not a small sample size either, I will say. They have this listed at ages 7 and up officially, but the community says ages 8 and up, and a box playing time of 30 to 45 minutes with 2 to 5 players. Now, the community apparently has voted, the Board Game Geek users themselves have voted that 2-player is the best way to play this game, which I'm going to have some thoughts on in a bit here. As far as how this game is played, we talked about how deep of a dive we really want to do on this first board game podcast. I guess I would just say main mechanic here really is 2, right? Unless I'm forgetting something, of tile placement, which is you're going to get a little chunk of the map and then kind of choose where you want to put that chunk with some restrictions. And then also have area control, right? Which is where you're going to use your pieces. We'll talk about those in a bit here as well. Am I forgetting any of the main?
Not necessarily. If you want to count the meeples as resources, kind of resource management a little.
Okay, that's a good point.
Because if you spend when in certain ways, you don't get them back. So
true.
This is a good point. So essentially, I mean, the 10-second version of this game is you draw a tile, you put it in the board where you can. You can use some of your meeples, which are little wooden figures that are included in most modern board games of different shapes and designs. This game has the ever classic little person-looking figure, which is kind of where the term, I guess, originated. And
my people,
you try to score points. So that's kind of the point of all this, I guess. So Matt, you said this was introduced to you as one of your early new games. I mean, what did you think of this out of the gate? Obviously, you liked it.
I had a really good time playing it right out of the gate. It seems so simple and easy to learn, but it could get way more complex than it initially seemed. And I just immediately thought to myself, I need to play this with my brother and sister. So when I got home, I played it with my friend Jeff, probably right before winter break one time. And then I went home and I just bought it immediately, $100 big box. So, and my siblings both took right to it. They both have their own big boxes now. And I played this with them a couple of weeks ago, actually.
Oh, nice.
The one thing I would like to say is once you've played it a while, the base game gets dull after a while. But there's God knows how many expansions to this thing. There's I was trying to collect them all at one point in time, and it proved impossible after a while because there are mini expansions that were published in magazines that have been on a print for 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, there's so many different ones. Let's just say that my big box came with 4, and there's got to be at least a dozen past that point. And how many damn standalone games that are based on the same concept? My first Carcassonne, Castle Carcassonne, Carcassonne New World, Carcassonne the Winter Edition, Carcassonne Hunters and Gatherers. There's just so many of them.
The dragon, the tower.
Those are expansions though.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, that's an expansion to the original. So.
Yeah, so I guess let's clarify that. So if you're not a board gamer and you, again, get into these newer style board games, the ones that have done really commercially well Matt has mentioned here, kind of come out with expansions to make that gameplay kind of continue to feel fresh. And they're little modules you can add on. Sometimes it's extra pieces, sometimes it's extra cards, or even a new board in some cases. But essentially, it's a way for that game to never get too stale, right? Like what you're saying, if you get tired of that base game, you can just throw in these other modules, or I can play with number 1 and number 4 today and 3 and 4 next week or whatever.
Now the funny thing about that is,
at
least among my siblings, we don't really mix them up all that much. We play with the base game, Inns and Cathedrals, Traders and Builders,
Yep.
and River 2, and then a couple of like the mini just that had more tiles added from the magazine thing. I think, and then there's some from like something called King and Scout. There were 5 new tiles from that one. But that's basically what we play. So we have all these other ones, but we don't really use them that much. We don't ever use the catapult. We don't ever use the tower. We don't ever use the Princess and the Dragon, although I like all those. We just don't tend to use them.
So you, in essence, kind of have just in your family house ruled like a new base game, basically.
Yeah, we played with my Russian sister because we were all in town for once, and she had never played before actually, and I'm like, shouldn't we just like play the base game once just to get her up to speed before we start adding in trading goods and inns and cathedrals and robber barons and all this other shit. And she's like, no, we'll just go with it.
Throw it to the wolves.
Yeah.
All right, Justin, what do you remember about playing this one?
I'm 100% certain the first time I ever even heard of this game was courtesy of Matt here. Yeah, he I don't remember the circumstances surrounding it, but yeah, he brought out, it was probably the big box, and we were just hanging out and said, hey, let's give this a try. And yeah, it was different than anything else I'd really played up to that point. Trying to think of like the closest board game of any sort that would have even come close to this sort of thing. And I think this was before I ever played Betrayal at House on the Hills, so nothing's really coming to mind in terms of like building the map as you go. And it struck me as just such an interesting and different approach to this sort of thing, because most board games I had played up until that point was you have the board and that's pretty much it. And here it was like, okay, the board is whatever you make of it, and you try to build it so that it suits you the best possible way. And it was eye-opening, really, because I was like, oh, there's there's so much more that a board game can be than what I had thought it was up until that point. So yeah, it was a very enlightening experience, and I want to say thanks again to Matt for introducing me to it.
No problem.
Yeah, it's a great point with the board being modular in this game is really different than the old style of board games. It's just, old games were hindered by the fact that the board never changed. So while the game itself could be different, depending on what you were playing, the outcome could be different, or your dice roll could be different, or even cards or something that could manipulate the game. Like the board was still the same experience, and that's not the case with a lot of these more modern games such as this. My experience is probably the same as Justin's, honestly, which is I know Matt showed me this game first. Like I said, it was not even a word I had looked at, and I was like, how do you even say that word? I don't even know what that is. Carcassonne, or I don't know how that goes. But
they probably could have named the darn thing better, don't you think? I mean, I guess it's a walled city at Frit.
Probably, yeah. But now it's what it is. So
now it works.
it persevered, and now it's what it is. Yeah, they could have simplified it, I guess, but yeah, it's just I really like this one from the standpoint of the chess match that you have with like placing your pieces on the board and trying to find ways to outplay your opponents by putting a guy on a field here and then hoping that field connects later on to try to fight against each other for the points on the fields, or to see who can build big cities. And I basically played the same expansions more or less that Matt mentioned. I bought myself a big box like 2 years ago, and it has different expansions than Matt's copy does. There's some overlap, but there's some new ones too. There's some weird things. There's like gold mines and flying machines and aliens, and then it has some of the standard expansions also.
I have the gold mines one. There's like 6 mini ones that go together.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever played with any of them.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I like that it's there. You know what I mean? I haven't played with some of them either, but I just like that if I ever got to the point where I was like, I'm bored of this the way it is, there's something I could drop in there, and then it's ready.
I have played one game where we used every expansion we owned at the time.
Oh boy.
Oh.
It was at when I lived at the Lutheran house. Were you in on that game, Justin?
I want to say yes. I don't remember who won, but I remember there being a lot of pieces I hadn't really used up until that point, and a lot of referencing the rules. Yeah, because I remember, yeah, the dragon and the princess were part of that. You had the tower, and a few other
You had
ones
the
that I
count
had.
also, Matt.
Yeah,
The count,
The
yes.
count we played with that. I think it's the only time I've ever played with the count.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I
Okay.
remember it was a lot to try and keep straight, but it was interesting seeing just how much they had added to it at that point.
Yeah, but I mean, this is essentially. I don't know that. I guess if you played with just the base game and you had a couple people who really both A, knew the game, and B, didn't care as much as they could, you could maybe plow through this in a half hour, but I just can't see
Oh
that
God, I don't know
being
how they got
feasible.
that number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never played a game in this in a half hour.
Because there's
I
so
would-
much to consider with every piece that you're placing and all
Even
that.
even if you're doing the draw the tile ahead of time thing.
Yeah. Well, so that's one thing we can mention with this one is a lot of newer games too. You know, we mentioned the old ones had a lot of luck and the new games are mostly strategy, but there is still some luck in games like such as Carcassonne. What you draw as the tile on your turn is, going to really limit what you can do on your turn. You may be waiting to finish a road or a city and you just can't draw the damn piece for 12 turns in a row. And then you're like, God, I gotta go try to work on this other thing over here, or sabotage somebody else's city that they're working on, or whatever the case is. But else as I just gotta say on this one, I'd be curious what you both say on this. I mentioned that the users on Board Game Geek like this best at 2, and I could definitely see how this would work well as like a chess game, almost like trying to outplay another player. But me personally, I would much prefer to play this with like maybe 4. A larger count, not too high because then you don't get a lot of tiles and turns. I know it plays up to 6 typically, or this one says 5, but I think for me, I'd rather have more people because I like a little more chaos in my strategy against other people. Like if I'm trying to defeat you in one area, we're both trying to play back and forth against each other. I like when that third player like springs out of nowhere and throws a tile down and you're both like, wait, what the hell? Why are you over here? So I like that in mind, but I mean, what do you think's the sweet spot for you all on this one?
Probably 4.
Yeah,
I
I'd say
think
definitely. Go on.
I was just gonna say 4 people. I don't know that I've ever played a 2-player.
I don't
I
think
definitely
have
see how it
either.
could work.
Yeah, I do. But as you said, like when you place a tile like with someone's got the megalopolis going with like the cathedral in it, they have all these like as a 20 tile city, and you put your little thing up there, it's not connecting, so you can put a guy in it and you put your big meeple up here, and then your sister like is like, what? Why are you doing that?
Or whoever.
Yeah. But yeah, I do agree. Having at least more than 2, 3, 4 probably is the sweet spot. I would agree, but 2 seems like it could get very samey after a while, especially if you're playing with against the same person all the time. Whereas with 3, there's always going to be kind of that little the chance that something you didn't foresee is going to happen. 3 or 4, you've got so many other pieces in play, so to speak, that it keeps it fresh. It keeps it a bit more unpredictable. Whereas 2, I could see, you could start to get into the mind of whoever you're playing against a lot more easily than having 2 other people to worry about.
I have played 2-player Carcassonne, but online.
Okay.
Online with people I have. I don't know that I ever have in person though.
That is a great memory you just brought up because I had forgotten about that till just now. Because I think you've introduced this to us, and then we found a website. I think it was a French website actually, because I think it was like a .fr website where you could do a pirated version of Carcassonne and Settlers and 2 other games. I forget what, or maybe pirated is the wrong word, but they changed the name and for blah blah blah. But yeah, and you could go that one. You could go through the game 15-20 minutes, blow through all the pieces, and then you had the computer playing against you. So yeah, I forgot about that. We played
And it
that.
did all the scoring probably for you automatically, which
Yep.
cuts out at least 15 minutes of the game.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it even like color coded like when you drew a tile, like where it optionally could go around the edges. So that sped things up considerably too. Which was still good. I mean, I know they have this game for modern consoles and PCs still, so that's an option.
You can play it on Board Game Arena, I know.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's see. Anything else we want to say on this one? I mean, there's, if you're interested in games like this or even just this game, you could definitely go on YouTube or Board Game Geek. There's a lot of links on there too, and there's thousands of people that do reviews and how to plays and go over the rules with you and things like that. So I don't think we need to get into all that with ours. Just know that again, there's different rules, different expansions. You have different meeples which do different things on the board, so you got to kind of weigh when and where to put those pieces down, so that, like Matt said, you're not stuck wishing you had that one piece later on that's trapped on the board someplace, and you may or may not get it back later on. Or it says on Board Game Geek, the decisions are: is it really worth putting my last meeple there? Or should I use this tile to expand my city, or should I place it near my opponent instead, making it hard for them to complete their project and score points?
And if you're playing with the trade goods, then sometimes it's like, should I complete this giant city of theirs so I get, these 4 trade goods in there, which might give me 30 points at the end of the game.
Yeah.
But it'll give them a lot of points too. Or if you're playing with the king and the robber baron, it'll give me the king piece so that I get a point for every completed city at the end. That can be huge.
Mm-hmm.
And the most recent games I played with, both of them, by the way, it was neck and neck till the very end. And the only reason I lost both of them was because my sister got the road, the robber baron, which gives you a point for every completed road at the end. And it's just like, I was actually pretty far ahead of her this last game, I think. And I don't know, I gave her some like 30 or 40 points.
Wow, point for every road. That could be a lot.
Yeah.
I could see that.
35 points. I don't remember how many, but it was a lot.
Yeah. Well, and there's sometimes tiny little roads too, so they can add up. Okay, well, let's go through and decide what we're going to do this. So if they want tonight, the hosts can optionally give this a number out of 10 for their own rating, but ultimately we're going to each label whether we believe this game has held up and is a classic, or whether this is crap that is not worthy of its legendary status. So they may want to go first on this one. Would you prefer me to go first?
I mean, I can go. I thought we would go over the other one and then kind of compare the two, but is this, I will do it this.
I was thinking we were going to be doing it kind of each on its own merits.
Okay, well,
we could still compare the two at the end if you want.
Okay, well, one of the things I want to point is I was grocery shopping the other day, and they had a box of Settlers on the shelf, and they didn't have a box of Carcassonne on the shelf, and that made me very sad. But I think, for me, this has stood up. The only thing is the definition of whether it is a classic or not does it have to be, as you put it, legendary status? Does it have that to begin with? Or is it not as known? But I would say, for me, it's a classic for sure. So I'll go with that.
I mean, we should mention too, we didn't say this, but there are board game awards. Again, we're not trying to dive too deep down the rabbit hole here, but this is a board game winner of 2001.
Spiel des Jahres.
So this is basically the best game of the year, right? That's what
that's what I mean. Spiel des of the Jahres year. Game of the year.
Game of the year. Okay. So this is a winner of that. So we know at least it has some pedigree there. So classic for you. All right. Justin, you want me to go or you want to go?
I'll go.
Okay.
So yeah, for me, from my perspective at least, a classic is something that, at least in terms of a game, is it something that I could see myself revisiting? Is it something that I have fond experiences with, that I have fond memories of? Is it something that, for lack of a better term, that feels timeless? And to me, yes, Carcassonne does feel like a game that you could bring out at any point, and it would feel, it would spark that same level of interest and excitement that, as like the first several times I played it, because each playthrough is a bit different. Yeah, it always has something fresh and new, and there's always that risk and reward elements that can come together in interesting and unexpected ways, depending on who you're playing with, how many people you got. It's a game that I could see, playing pretty much any time. It just has that timeless quality to it to me. So it easily a classic in my opinion.
I thought about what you're both saying here, which is kind of how I would come up with the definition also, which is this is a game Matt had this. So as long as I was around Matt, I didn't need it because I could play it with Matt. And then I didn't have a copy of this for 20 years, probably, until I bought that box recently. But it was a game that in the back of my head, I always felt like I needed to have in my collection. I just never had in my collection. Like the opportunity just wasn't there for a couple of reasons. I've expanded into, hundreds of other games in the meantime since then. Much like Matt said, he has the big box. I kind of never wanted to buy the little box because I always wanted to wait to find a good deal on a big box of it because I wanted a lot of expansions and variety for the copy that I'd have eventually too. And that's ultimately what I finally got. I think I got mine on like a Black Friday or Cyber Monday or something a couple of years back, when the box was pretty cheap. So it's definitely a game I always wanted. Similar to what Justin said, to me, a classic is also got to be something that if I went to somebody's house for the first time for like a little social hangout and they were like, "Hey, you guys want to play board game?" And I was like, "Oh God, yeah, what do you got?" And they plopped Carcassonne on the table. I'd be like, "Okay, great." Like this is like Justin said, there's probably never a time where I would reject playing this with somebody. Like it's always going to be game. I know it's going to be fun. It's also fun because it's like both a solitaire game and a social game. Like you're mostly building your own stuff, but you are going to have those moments where people interrupt what you're doing. And if you're, a strategic or vengeful player, maybe you're throwing some stuff to mess them up as well. And sometimes that devolves into chaos, which is fun as well. So this is, I will say one, like, since I've played so many games since this now in the, what you want to say, like my attention to games has expanded in so many directions. It's probably one that I don't hold as highly as I would have a long time ago. But definitely one that I would still say, in my opinion, too, is going to fall under classic territory here. This is definitely one people should check out. It's easy enough for people that, you could conceivably just sit around and learn how to play this with a couple of your friends. If none of you have ever played it before, I think it's not that confusing. I don't think. Maybe the fields, you might have to take a second to realize how that all works.
But they streamlined those rules too. They streamlined the fields to make it a lot easier.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, I would say for me, this is going to be a classic as well. So we got 3 classics on this one as it holds up. So there we go. All right. Well, completely switching gears to our second game tonight, our quote unquote classic, but is it classic or is it crap? I expect to be maybe slightly more divisive of the two. Now this is one, Justin and Matt are here with me this week, but we had mentioned before we started recording that we have a friend, Mike, and this is probably, I believe, his favorite board game, Settlers of Catan. We have a friend, Dave, who hosts on here sometimes. This is probably on his Hall of Shame, games that he absolutely hates, and actively will go see if anybody wants to start a game at a different table to avoid playing this game. Although he very nicely says to Mike that he'll play it with him at any time, but we all know better. We just don't say anything in the moment. So, Dave, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry I just ratted you out, but anyway. So Settlers of Catan, this is the older one of the two, and this is another one where if you chose to, you could make the board modular with the famous hex tiles that are in this one, although I think there's a recommended island setup that a lot of people use in the instruction guide. This has, just like Carcassonne, 10,000 different variants and expansions, and they go to space, and they have ships, and they have pieces that change. But at its core, this is basically a game where you are building little cities and building little roads between those cities and collecting some cards and resources in the meantime to help further build those cities and those roads. That's essentially the game in a nutshell. So in terms of, game strategies on this, we have, again, probably area control with regarding where you place your stuff to block other people out. There is, I guess, a little bit maybe of set collection with like having the right combination of wood and sheep and wheat, and what else is there? Bricks and rock, or
Brick and
clay
rock,
and rock, or something like that. Well, before I say that next part, let's just give you some stats on this one. So the box on this one says ages 10 and up. The community has voted that that's too high. They believe ages 8 and up are able to play this. Now, this box says 60 to 120 minutes, which is surprisingly an honest and large number for the box to say, I would say. Mm-hmm. And they have 3 to 4 players. As the box says, community has voted that this is best as a 4-player game. which that little island fills up pretty damn quick when you're playing with 4 or 5 players on the island, I will say.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think the biggest thing here that I feel like is going to be divisive for people that played this one, especially those who have played a lot of the modern ones, is the factor of luck in this game. And I know besides its simplicity, this is one of the reasons Dave cannot stand this game. So essentially, as you are claiming your initial starting spots in this game, you're putting down 2 little settlements and 2 little roads on this hex based, was there like 25 tiles ish, something like that you put down?
Oh my God.
It
See
seems
here.
a little high, but
7, 7,
Yeah.
14, 5. Okay, 19 tiles.
yeah.
There we go. So 19 hexagons make up the board here. And you're going to put your initial starters down, and you just like a little weave of kind of like how you put those down in order. So it's a little more fair for people that go later. But once that's done, and actually before you even do that, each of the tiles has been designated a number, which is a combination that 2 dice can make when you roll them. So just like a good craps game in Vegas, if you can find something close to 7, which you can't get 7 in this game, but like a 6 or an 8 or even a 5 and a 9, those are going to be numbers that are rolled very frequently during the game. And every time that number's rolled, if you have one of your settlements or later a city touching the sides of that hex, you're going to score the resource that's depicted on that hex. Essentially, the luck of the dice is going to give you your currency in this game to be able to buy things and score towards the end. And if you're that woe is me person who happens to get like the 2 or the 12 for where you end up putting your stuff down, it's probably not going to be good for you. Although, again, weird things happen in this game as well. You might get an 8 and then 8 never gets rolled the whole game, which is, again, a form of luck in and of itself. So that's kind of the overview on this one. So let's go through again. Do you remember your first couple times playing this one, what you thought of it, and kind of any impressions you have of this now, or anything else about the game that I have forgotten?
The first time I played it was either it was either with my friend Lori or with one of my exes, and I honestly do not remember which one introduced me to it first. But both of them were big into Catan. Like, anytime, the idea of board games came up, this would always be like near the top of what they would recommend. So I got a fair amount of experience playing this. So again, in college, it was really when I was introduced to it. And initially, yeah, it was, an interesting and different experience because, it was still luck based, but it felt like there was some strategy involved and you could, sort of barter and try to make things work with the other players.
Yeah.
And so those are my initial impressions of it. Favorable when I first started out. We'll expand on that later. I don't want to hog the spotlight too much.
Well, I think you did point out one interesting thing I forgot to say, which is you were allowed to trade in this game. That's basically one of the key concepts of how this game plays. This is where the classic "I'll give you wood for sheep" or whatever type lines come from, where you're trading resources with each other. So that you can,
they don't sell T-shirts with that on it is kind of a shame.
Oh, they sell them. I've seen it
They do?
before.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
wow.
oh yeah, I've seen them.
Okay.
But that is kind of a key thing, is you both can trade to try to benefit each other. You benefit yourself, I should say, as you're making the trades off. Matt, where'd you play this one? So you played this after Carcassonne?
I'm pretty sure. I'm almost positive. Again, it would have been with Jeff. And I didn't necessarily hate it. I didn't like it nearly as much. It's just kind of slow. If your numbers aren't rolled, you're screwed. If you get bad placement, you're screwed. I've always described it as, who's going to win an hour into it, and then it takes another hour to finish the thing off, and nothing's going to change it, but still you just gotta grin and bear it. Well, I guess we're stuck here until they get their last few victory points, but I'm not getting up there, so that's
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. I did buy from my friend the Starfares version, so I do actually own a version of it. And Starfares was pretty cool, but again, it had the same problem. It had the same. We knew who was going to win really early on. It just sort of dragged out past that point, but it was cool, like exploring the planets and everything. But
So I haven't played that. So does that have like the same like hex setup at the beginning, or
yeah,
is it
basically, I think it's pre-set up the same way though. I think it's a board. It's been a long time since I played it.
okay? So when you say
Uh,
explore, are you saying like you don't know what's on the tile as you go there?
Oh, you like flip over cards and events happen because you have like a
Oh,
little
okay.
spaceship that's moving around,
Oh, okay.
and I don't remember how it plays. Like you don't start with settlements, you actually have to go and make them,
Okay.
I think. So you move your spaceship around and then you settle a planet or you settle something. Again, it's really been a long time, and I only played it once or twice, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it comes with really cool spaceships that you use as your dice.
Oh,
Like you shake them, and then these little balls come at the bottom, and they tell you what you can do.
Oh,
They're like
okay.
different colored. They're like different colored. If it's red and it's green, you can do this. If it's red and it's red, you can do this. If it's green and it's green, you can. I don't remember what the colors are or what the effects are, but
Okay. Yeah,
you
this
can
is
add
one.
on
Oh, go
to
ahead.
you can add on to your spaceship. You can build lasers. You can build
Oh, wow.
shields, like thrusters. They added a lot to it and made it pretty cool, but still Catan at the end.
Still
Mhm.
Catan. You
Okay,
made
I'm
me
sorry.
think of no, you made me think of Galaxy Trucker there. The Mary kept talking about
Ah,
that, but we'll have to do that sometime too. I think I played this first with our friends Matt and Christopher when we lived in Marquette. This was another one that would like they were way into, and I do mean way into. Like I think they were playing this nightly with their friend Tracy for like months and months and months. So whenever we'd see them, they'd be like, "Want to play Catan? Want to play Catan?" Which I liked, but I will say the strategy is
non-existent.
light. Well, it's not non-existent, I don't think, but it's very light. And like I felt like as somebody who just grasped strategy and mathematical concepts, like I could walk in and be like, well, this is the best place to build one, and then you put your road on this route to get to this other like to me it always seemed very obvious what you were supposed to do as the best move. And so I think like I would win sometimes and they'd be like, I don't know how you beat us because we play this all the time. And I was like, okay, um the trading aspect is really fun in this one, just with like how you can out offer each other. Like when it's somebody's turn, you're like all attempting to like make your trade the most appealing to the person so that they'll trade with you. And then there's, like Matt said, there is a little bit of runaway leader problem in this where somebody's ahead, like they're very hard to catch up. Basically, I think in this game it's impossible unless multiple people without or with directly saying so agree that we're going to try to screw this person for everything we can to stop them. I think you can do it then, but it's very hard. And if the dice come up certain ways, it's still, but you can move the robber around or the thief, I guess it is in this game, to try to block a little bit there. And you can try to purposely exclude that person from trades later in the game to try to, shut them out that way. And there's a couple things you can do, but it is very hard to do that. Now, I know Mike, I mentioned, loves this game. He says he really only loves to play it the most with I'm not good with Catan, but is it Knights and Cities or Knights and
I don't know any of the expansions.
Same.
I looked this up earlier. Now I can't.
Maybe they would make the game more interesting for me.
I
I don't
looked at
know.
a picture of it and I was like, I don't think I've played with that, or if I did, maybe once a long time
Maybe
ago.
Seafarers. You mentioned something about Seafarers in the chat.
Seafarers is a little different. I did play that one on that website I was referencing earlier, but I thought it was called Knights and something.
There's
This
Cities
is
and Knights, I believe.
Cities and Knights, maybe that's what it's called. Which I see there were some pieces on there I didn't recognize, so I don't think I've ever played that one. So yeah, this is essentially like not too far off, like playing the craps line at Vegas, but with a lot of other shit added to it. And hoping that
Yeah.
your dice roll comes up and hoping that other people don't block you from when that dice roll comes up being a good thing and going from there. So I guess, Justin, you sounded like you had some secondary thoughts on this.
Yeah, so my initial exposure to the game before I realized just how early on that the winner was almost always determined. My initial, reactions were a lot more positive than what happened later, because if you're doing well in the game in any specific session, if you're one of the players who's doing well, it can be fun. But if you get just the bad placement off the bat, or if your numbers never get rolled, it's like, boy, I'm glad smartphones exist, because I'm just going to roll my dice. Oh, I didn't get any of my resources. Nobody wants to trade with me because I'm like in third place and I'm a non-factor. So I guess I'll just wait 2 minutes for the turn to get around to me and have the same thing happen over and over again. I once I realized that if you're not in the lead early on, you're just going to be sitting there. This game really, really tanked, in my opinion, because there's nothing, like you two were saying, there's nothing you could do to really claw your way back up. If you don't, just start running right out of the gates, you're pretty much screwed, and that isn't fun.
Yeah, and I think the only thing, if I remember correctly, that they do to mitigate that is when you set up your cities in the beginning, it's like they go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then like a fantasy sports draft, basically they go 4, 3, 2, 1. So if you put the last city down, you get to pick the first city for your second city, which mitigates as much as they can with that setup. And then if you got the best city, you're inevitably going to get the very crappy last city at the end, to like where it's almost maybe better to be second or third. I don't know. But you also want that prime spot too. And then the resources, of course, which ones flip up on which tiles are going to be different every game. And, there's maybe resources that are worth more if you want to build roads or cities or whatnot. So these are all good points. So it sounds like it went a little downward the more you played it then. Matt, doesn't sound like you had a very high opinion of this one out of the gate.
It was okay.
Yeah.
It was okay. Again, the more I played it, the more, and I haven't played it all that much, to be honest.
You hated it that much. No, yeah, it didn't take much. I'm trying to think anything else on this one. This is one, again, you can pick up basically anywhere. I mean, most big box stores have this, and like Matt said, you can even find it in surprising places. Probably could find this one at like you said, a grocery store, didn't you, Matt?
Kroger.
But I would guess you could find this at like some Walgreens and like pharmacy type places too that carry like 3 games. Maybe this is one of the ones they have.
Perhaps, yeah.
It's just another one. I know this was a huge one for my wife because she does like this one. I'd be curious to ask her when we're done with this what she still thinks about this today. But she was big on this when we used to play, and it took forever. She likes, I don't even know what it is anymore. I used to know like the 3rd edition or the 2nd edition specifically of this game, which came with tiles that do not have the border pieces with like the frame that builds around the island. They were just free floating pieces that you just slid next to each other in to make the big hex. And that's the one she always liked. So I finally found a copy of that edition that she wanted. And then I did pick up a 5-6 player edition years later at some like Go Calendars end of the season sale type thing. And I don't even think they're the same edition. So I don't know if they match. And I don't think we've ever even opened the 5 or 6 player one, to be quite honest. We did play this, I believe, with the kids a couple times because we've been trying to get them into some, more adultish games. This is always one that bothered me too, because one of the things you can do with the resource cards is you can buy a development card in the game, and some of them are like victory points, and some of them are like, pick 3 resources of your choice type stuff. And, I'd play with people and they'd always get like 2 points on victory points. And you only need to get 10 to win in this game, we should point out. And I'd always get I'd flip mine over and it'd be like the worst shit ever. It was like, get up and get a drink. No, not really, but literally it'd be like nothing that was helpful to score in the game whatsoever. So there's even luck with that. And that sucks because like the cards are not cheap. You got to spend your precious resources to buy a card. And some people like to buy a lot of cards, and some people like to build long roads, and some people like to build cities and whatever. So there's a couple ways you can score points in this one, but at its, well, it sounds like I'm thinking we know which way most people are going to be picking of the two games against each other. But at their face value, this looks and is a really simple game. Carcassonne is a very simple game, but the strategy in that one is, far more complex than what you have in this one. But actually, in terms of like how you play the game, like you could play Carcassonne and not know what the hell you're doing and lose terribly, but you could play it. And in this game, like same thing, you could play it and understand it, but there's not as much strategy in this whatsoever. So there is that. So what did I say here? This is a 7.1 and Carcassonne is a 7.4 according to Board Game Geek. So they have it pretty close. Now Carcassonne, I said, has 117,000 ratings. And interestingly, Carcassonne and Catan have the same amount of ratings ish. They're both in the 117,000 tiny minutia type place. So these are really two titans that stand side by side. All right, all of that is to say, unless anybody has anything else to say on this one, let's talk about, do you call this classic or is this crap? Did this also win the board game award?
Let me check.
Yeah, this has a little something on the cover of the edition I have here, which I still can't read this. It has too many words, but I do see Spiel des Jahres is on the icon. It has words underneath it, though I can't see what they say on this particular photo. But it looks like they both.
It did win the Spiel des Jahres in 1995.
95, okay.
I was off by a year.
Yeah, that's pretty close. All right, well, let's chat on this one. So, round robin, I think let's chat here. This is tough. This is a really tough one for me. Like I'm borderline on this. I'll say it this exact second. Justin, you want to go first on this one?
Sure. I mean, the best I can say is that Settlers of Catan it's a perfectly functional game. You can go in without much preparation, learn the rules pretty quickly, play a round or two, and feel like you have an idea of what's going on, and how to approach things. That said, I don't feel like there's really much here. It's like it's you're at the mercy of the dice. I mean, yes, you can try to trade with people.
Absolutely.
Yes, you can try to build your road here versus there to try and cut somebody off and cut off their plans. But if the dice don't like you, none of it matters. It's like Yahtzee. It's like Monopoly. It's those are also very functional games. They do what they set out to do, but they're not. If luck isn't in your favor, they're not fun because there's literally nothing you can do to try and increase your odds to try and do better because it's literally out of your hands. And that is the most damning part of this for me, because the game can drag, as we've alluded to. It can be well over an hour per session of this, and if you're spending 50%, 75% of that time just sitting, not accomplishing anything, that gets old really quick. So as an entry point for gaming, sure, I can see this letting people get their feet wet, so they can get an idea of what's out there besides the Sorry, Scrabble, that sort of thing. But in terms of any lasting appeal, I don't really feel Catan has any, at least to me. And in light of that, I have no other recourse but to call this game crap.
There's judgment number one. Matt, what do you say? Classic or crap?
This is kind of a tough one for me. Because, okay, I hate it, but the world seems to love it. It is
Don't let that be your guiding light.
it is a huge gateway game to a lot of people. It gets a ton of people into the hobby, and it was kind of the starting point of modern board gaming, really. That's kind of what kickstarted the whole thing. I mean, in that right, it is a classic, but I mean, it's a classic. Like I don't know. Something like
The Great
Citizen.
Gatsby.
I actually like that.
Fair.
I'll go with Kane, Citizen Kane, where it might not be every, most people feel like I'm not gonna watch that. But hey, maybe it's what everybody says is great. So like to me it's crap. I don't care for it. But like I said, it has its place and I have no say in that. Enough people like it that well I'll just say that it's crap. I don't care for the game.
Okay.
I mean, Matt outlined a lot of the issues I have with this, which is I think it is a classic in the terms of a lot of people have played this. A lot of people had a early experience with this in their modern board gaming career to the point where this is kind of you know probably a fond memory, but maybe not necessarily a fond memory in the way that something is fantastic. Just like there's stuff from my childhood I remember, which is probably not great. Wasn't great then, but I enjoyed it in the moment at the time. Um, I do agree that the downtime in this game is bad, and if the dice are bad, that can really make the game crappy for you. I do agree with all that. I mean, I kind of like watching to see if my numbers get called up, and even though I know I can't fully obviously manipulate the dice, I always try to think like if I just put my cities in the right spot, there's a chance that I can outsmart everybody else with how the dice are going to fall this game, and I'll get that magic resource. But then somebody's going to put the thief on my fucking stone factory, and that's going to be the end of my game anyway, bastards, because then it'll get rolled 3 times when I can't collect on it. The board is way small in this game. I mean, I can't think of many board games I've played that feel more claustrophobic than this game when you play it, because even at the beginning, when you put the 8 cities down for a 4-player game, or settlements, I guess, like it already feels like you're like, I don't know where I can build from here. Like I can't go left, can't go down, can't go up. And by the time you put the roads on there and then you start, cleaning off spots already, and then you got to build out to the coast. And I hate the coast in this game. I know some people like to build to the coast and do the trade to the bank thing. I don't do that. So I'm remembering correctly that if you or like if an 8 gets rolled and you don't have anything that touches an 8, you just get nothing, right? Straight up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
See, I wonder, I'm wondering if there's a variant of this where like, I don't even know, maybe at the beginning of the game, you take like 2 of each resource, shuffle them into a deck, or you'd have to be more than 2, like 10 of each resource, shuffle them into a deck. And then like, if you get nothing off your turn, you get to draw the top card. So at least you get something to help build towards something for the future. Like, I wonder how much that would change the gameplay, if it would break the mechanics or if it would make it feel more fair for the person who gets screwed every turn. Because then at least every few turns they'd be able to do something. But maybe only if you were the one that rolled. I don't know. There's different ways you could do it. Yeah, this is tough because it's so simple and you can get screwed on it so badly. But people do seem to like this. Like Matt said, I like watching the numbers come up. I'm not a gambler per se. Only when I eat out to see if they accidentally contaminate it with gluten. That's really the only gambling I do these days. But I guess I'll be the naysayer and I will say classic tonight by the thinnest of margins, just from the fact that this is an easy game to explain to people, and in a perfectly balanced game, it could be fun, but I'm not saying it's classic by much. This is like 52-48 classic over crap. To be clear, this is not a Hall of Fame or anything. Maybe at the time, but that's all they had, I guess, in 1995. But a lot of people love it because it is so simple too. And we have to remember that, while we have evolved and played hundreds of games at this point, other people haven't. And even people who have played some of these newer games have still not played anywhere near the amount of games that we have played. And so to them, this is maybe like out of their comfort zone enough that they're like, oh, I like that Catan game that guy had. That was kind of fun. So I could see how it could be. So I'll give it the ever so slight edge for classic on this one.
Okay.
Well, I don't think we need to do the proposed section on which of the two we prefer more because it sounds like none of us are remotely going to have this go with the needle facing to Catan tonight. So I think that's fair to say that's a KO for, or a TKO, I suppose, is our three of us here. A
Oh yeah.
victory for Carcassonne or Carcassonne or whatever this is pronounced. Carcassonne. Oh, it'd just be Carcassonne. I don't know where I got the name from. Anyway. All right. Any last closing comments on these two, gents? This was actually kind of fun to just go back and talk about these two.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything else to say about these. I think it's all been said.
It's all been said.
But yeah, it definitely, games that are in the public consciousness. But there's a lot that's in the public consciousness that isn't necessarily good. Objectively.
Racism, for example.
Sure, yeah. If you want to compare Settlers of Catan with racism, why not?
Oh, well, okay. Oh, you switched your background to another classic game.
I
It's
I
Crossfire.
muted you and took my headphones off for a second because my wife came in the room. And then the next thing I heard when I put my headphones back on was comparing settlers to racism.
Blame Cody for that.
All right.
When in doubt,
That's
blame Cody.
Canada's fault, not me. Just kidding, Canadian listeners.
Yeah, I had
Just
said
kidding.
I had said there's
Do we have
plenty
Canadian
of
listeners?
things.
I don't know.
I had said there are plenty of things out in the public consciousness that aren't necessarily good, but people are aware of them. And then Cody threw out the idea of racism, and I'm like, okay, sure, why not?
Well, I mean,
And
it's not good. I'm just saying.
It's not. No. Anyway, we're rambling at this point.
We are just rambling at this point.
Yeah.
So I guess that's really it. So our second classic or crap episode has concluded, but it sounds like even just from prepping this one, we have some ideas for, these are nice little episodes where we can kind of use to fill in if there's nothing new on TV or no new movies or games or anything that are out at the time, much like our supernatural and true crime, which we need to get back to at some point also.
Yes.
These are kind of plug and play. So, and like I said, if anybody's listening out there and even just has questions, or a great example of this, my friend Chad from high school that I still keep in contact with a little bit here and there, messaged me like a month ago. He was a co-winner of our fantasy baseball league this year that I ran, and he won, I don't know what it was, $150 or $125 he won in the league. And he was like, I've been waiting to get some money to buy some new board games because I haven't bought any in like 20 years. What should I buy?
Oh.
And so it was fun to just, give him some suggestions. He actually did all the work. He came up with like how much they all cost and like 50 that he's interested in, and asked opinions on those. So I guess what I'm rambling here again about, listener, is that if you have questions about board games, ask us, because we've played a lot of them. Probably less of the brand new ones, I would guess. But anything from the last 20, 25 years, we probably played or
have some opinion on it, some form or another.
Yeah. All right, we'll see you next time on another episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. Cha-cha.